Hey guys, I'm Shimon. My good friend George reacted to this really interesting video called 12 Things Not to Do in Japan. And it was really interesting. So I also wanted to watch it and give my opinion because I'm also a Japanese. Actually, in my case, when I was 3 years old, I moved over to the US, Los Angeles, and I lived there for about maybe 5 years. And then after that, I came back to Japan, and I went to an international school. And for a university, I went back to the US, Southern California. And after that, I came back to Japan, and I've been living in Tokyo for many years since then. So I have experience of two cultures, the US and Japan. So I thought it would be interesting to give my opinions too. Alright, let's get it started then. Power! Yakitori.
So walking down the street whilst eating and drinking isn't illegal. You're not going to get shouted at and you're not going to get arrested by Ace Detective Sherlock Bones. But what you will get is the stare of disapproval.
Yeah, let's hold it there. Yeah, that's right. So it's not illegal to be walking and eating, but actually Japanese people will stare. They will stare at anything that is uncommon in the Japanese culture. But on the other hand, it depends on the situations. For example, if you go to like the matsuris, the Japanese festivals, yeah, people will be drinking and eating. So it just depends on the situation. Well, actually, in my case, when I have a long, tough day at work, when I finish, I go to the convenience store and I grab a beer, open it, and drink it while heading home. I get some people staring at me, and even in the trains, yeah, they stare at me, but you know, I actually don't care. Alright, let's keep on.
A lot of people don't know this one until you get here and never see anyone doing it. What you'll find is if someone wants to eat or drink something quickly outside, they'll buy at the convenience store and then eat it or drink it out the front. Same with vending machines. If they buy something from the vending machine, they'll drink it there and then next to the vending machine. The main reason is people are very conscious about keeping the streets clean here.
That's true, yeah. It's very, very clean. But, oh yeah, if you go to like places like, you know, Shinjuku or like maybe Shibuya, where like drunk people litter, but in the next morning, it's actually cleaned up by someone. Miracle. Oh.
3 things to point out here. Number 1, never put your chopsticks upright into the rice, as this is part of a ritual conducted at funerals.
Yeah. This is like a taboo for the Japanese. Actually, we learned it when we were kids. Kids like to play with chopsticks. And then I remember myself doing that too. And then my parents got pissed off. And then they would explain to me why. You know, they would say like, you know, these are done at funerals and it's for the people who passed away. But you know, as you come to think of it, physically, dead people can't eat. But it's actually like a sacred thing, so you know, we gotta accept it.
When offering rice to the spirits of the deceased. Similarly, number 2, never pass things from chopstick to chopstick, because again, this is done during funerals to pass the bones of cremated relatives. So that kind of imagery doesn't go down well over dinner, as you'd expect. Probably best not to conjure up imagery surrounding death before you've even had your lunch.
That's true, because you know, when you do that while eating dinner, suddenly it turns into a funeral. All the Japanese people are like, hey, no. This is supposed to be dinner, not a funeral.
Thirdly, don't do the rubbing of the chopsticks. You know when you open wooden chopsticks and you like to do that to get rid of the splinters, and just because it's fun. Everyone loves doing that, right? But don't do it in Japan because it's seen as rude to the owner, because you're basically saying, oh, your chopsticks are probably cheap, which, let's face it, they probably are. But in fact, they usually definitely
you know, kids love to play with chopsticks.
Probably the greatest thing about Japan ever, and the reason that I eat out several times a week, just because I save 20% automatically. In Japan, it's believed that customer service should always be exceptional, with staff giving 120%.
Actually, 200%. Japanese service is awesome.
And every time, 120%, 110%, 120% would be ridiculous. But it's not necessarily rude to tip someone, it just creates this awkward situation where the worker, the staff would feel like you're assessing their performance and they could potentially lose face. So you might think you're being nice by giving someone a tip, but you're not. You're just creating an uncomfortable situation for the worker and they'll probably just reject your tip outright. So don't be tempted to do it.
Well, actually, it's not that we feel uncomfortable, it's just we're not accustomed to tipping or receiving tips. I used to work at a restaurant, and there were some tourists that tipped me. And then, I was like, oh yeah, thanks. And I took it, but in the Japanese culture, yeah, basically there are no tips. Okay, that's one.
There's a real emphasis on being mindful when you're using public transport in Japan that's often completely absent in many countries. Numerous of the times that I've been riding a train in the UK and someone nearby has been screaming at their partner down the phone, and I felt like I was part of the argument, like some kind of unpleasant 4D experience. But given Japan's density, it's especially important to be mindful when you're stuck in a train alongside fellow commuters, many of whom are sleeping as well. With that in mind, don't ever talk on your phone on the train. That's a massive, no thing to do here. And even talking loudly is looked down upon. If you're on a local train or a subway train and you get a phone call, just ignore it until you get off. And if you're on a bullet train, you can go to the little compartment in between the carriages and take your call there.
Yeah, that's actually true. We weren't actually taught to be quiet in the train. It's just that Japanese people tend to do the same things as other people do. So if other people are quiet in the train, might as well be quiet too. But if there's a situation where you have to use the phone, then here's the way to answer the phone. Oh no, I gotta answer the phone. Hello? Yeah, it's me. You know what? I'm actually on the train. Yeah, so I can't talk. Yeah, is it an emergency? Yeah. Alright, yeah, I'll call you later, alright? Something like that. As long as you know that it's not a good thing to answer phones on the train, then yeah, people will kind of forgive you. Okay, go on. Yeah.
I remember for the first few years that I lived here, whenever someone handed me a business card, I was utterly terrified because until then, business cards to me had always just been a bit of paper or a bit of card with some writing on. But in Japan, they are so much more. Once you've exchanged business cards, the trick is to imagine you've just been handed the lost treasure of El Salvador or something. First, study it meticulously, the name, the job position, the details, and then either put it in your business card holder or just put it on the desk if you're at a business meeting. Just put it on the table. Never play around with business cards or put them in your back pocket because they're seen as a physical extension of the person themselves, and you don't want to stuff somebody's physical extension down your back pocket. If you're doing business in Japan, always carry business cards. You don't want to be that awkward foreigner who stood there writing out their name and number 50 times in 1 hour on the back of a tissue. And for the record, I am usually that awkward foreigner scribbling down my details because I do forget to bring them, and subsequently I hate myself when it happens.
Well, yeah, I could accept that. We don't exchange business cards as often. I think it's because of the situation we're in right now. We do everything online, so we can't exchange business cards online, right? I think eventually we won't be needing business cards in Japan. And I kind of hate the situation where when you exchange the business card, I kind of always wonder which hand to take the business card and which hand to give the business card. You kind of have to do it at the same time, because you're not supposed to take it first or give it first, So I don't think we need business cards here in Japan. Okay.
If you've got a runny nose, standard procedure here is just to keep sniffing, or just to find a toilet or a broom cupboard to hide in. Blowing noses in public is pretty rude.
It's not actually really rude. I think it kind of depends on how loud you blow your nose. So, if you blow your nose very quietly, then, I think it's kind of okay. It doesn't look very beautiful, but if you blow your nose quietly, yeah, I could accept that. But, if you blow your nose like, then you'll be like, hey, stay away from me, or do that in the restroom. Yeah.
Interestingly though, handkerchiefs are pretty popular here. Not in the way you would think though. People use them to wipe sweat off in the hot summer weather. Physical contact in Japan isn't really a thing. You'll bow a lot, you'll nod enthusiastically daily, but occasionally you might shake hands with someone if they're a good friend or a business client that you get on well with. But generally, I avoid it unless someone makes the first move. And hugging in particular doesn't go down well. It's just met with expressions of awkwardness and despair. And also, amongst couples, public displays of affection are phenomenally rare here. So don't be surprised if you get the stare of disapproval if you're kissing your partner frantically in the street.
Oh, yeah. You know, Japanese people basically don't kiss in public. You only do that when you're drunk. I don't know. It's kind of like embarrassing for us to kiss in public. Shaking hands is also, yeah, the same thing. It's kind of like a physical contact, right? Well, it's not like kissing, but we tend to hesitate when someone tries to shake your hand. But yeah, we're slowly getting used to it. Yeah. But for hugs, the Japanese people aren't still getting used to it, yeah. Yeah, maybe it'll take time.
And I think that it should definitely be this. If you're the sort of person who feels the need to have a debate or an argument about things or throw your opinions out there constantly, people will find you obnoxious and dislikable and probably just avoid you. Embedded heavily within the culture is this idea of keeping harmony and avoiding conflict at all costs. And it's a lot easier to do that when people aren't at each other's throats, throwing around opinions. Sometimes it can be frustrating when people are just unwilling to speak their minds or give you a clear yes or no answer.
That's true. The Japanese people, they love harmony. It's not that Japanese people don't like to give opinions. It's just that we have to give it indirectly. Because if you give opinions directly, it would kind of be like you're attacking someone. Okay, next one.
Yeah, I couldn't be bothered to film that one. Everyone seems to know this one already anyway. When visiting someone's house or entering a public building like a school or going to a hot spring, you take off your shoes and switch to slippers before you go in. The easiest way of knowing if you have to change your shoes is there'll be a change in elevation in the floor. So when you go in, there'll be a little stair.
Well, that's true. I think a lot of people who come to Japan, they know this rule, yeah. And even if you don't take off your shoes, we'll be like, oh yeah, could you please take off your shoes? And it's not going to be a big thing. But one advice I have is when you take off your shoes, it's very important to nicely place it at the entrance. Then the Japanese people will be like, oh wow, you know how to take off your shoes. You are a polite person. So especially when you want to leave a good impression, yeah, that might be good. Okay, next one.
For whatever reason, rubbish bins and trash cans are disturbingly rare in Japan. Outside of convenience stores, it can be a nightmare to find one. And the reason I put this on the list is because so many people, so many of you guys message me on Twitter saying, I'm in Tokyo and I can't find a bin, what should I do?
Yeah, that's true. It just depends on the place. Yeah, in some areas there are a lot of bins and in some areas there aren't, so you just have to know where the bins are. And there are definitely bins at stations or subway, so yeah, you just have to carry your garbage until then. You don't have to actually take it home, yeah. You can just throw it away at the station or the subway. Okay.
I've wandered through Tokyo for up to 20 minutes sometimes just in search of a bin and can't find one. The streets though, despite that, are shockingly clean here because people, if they can't find a bin, they just take the rubbish home with them. Don't be tempted to litter, just keep trying.
Yeah, please don't litter. Please don't litter. Okay.
Seems like a fairly obvious addition to the list, and yet in the UK we just cross the street whenever the hell we want, whenever there's an opening in traffic, as opposed to waiting for the green light, same as many countries. In Japan, however, people do not cross the road on a red light. It's incredibly rare, and it's one of the greatest ways of seeing this sense of order and obedience to the law that exists in Japan. If you stand at a roadside in Japan and there's no cars coming, you can't see any cars whatsoever, people still will not cross the road until it goes green. Over the years of the many friends I've had come to visit me here, this is the thing that shocks them the most. The idea of not crossing the street when there's no visible cars there. The idea of abiding by a rule that doesn't seem necessary. And yet for me personally, the main reason I abide by it is after a few years of being here, you don't want to stand out. You don't want to be this stereotypical rule-breaking foreigner.
Well, that's true, yeah. We wait for the lights. And I think it's because when we were kids, we were told by our parents, our teachers to, stop at red lights because it's really dangerous. And as being an adult now, I don't want to be a bad example to the kids. Well, anyways, yeah, it's dangerous to cross red lights, yeah.
And the last one, don't worry about not knowing anything about Japanese etiquette when you come to Japan. As I said earlier in this video, there aren't going to be any real consequences to not following any of these things, apart from maybe the footwear one. That's quite scary. You don't want to get dragged off by an old woman. The reason I say don't worry too much is because I find a lot of people come here and they're very nervous and very anxious about following the etiquette they don't really comprehend, and that includes even me. When I came here, I didn't know anything.
That's true, yeah. Even if you do all the don'ts, we won't be screaming at you or punishing you. We just might give you, you know, an awkward stare, but basically, if we know that it's your first time or you're not familiar with the Japanese culture, we will be understanding. Yeah. But the problem is that the Japanese people don't tell you in advance. So yeah, this video I think is really helpful if you're visiting Japan for the first time.
So those are my 12 things not to do in Japan, but what have I missed out? Let us know in the comments section below. I've probably missed out don't ever be late and don't enter a bath or a hot spring without having a shower first. Those are probably the other two key ones that I've missed out. And now they're on the list, so this is actually 14 things not to do in Japan, so bonus stuff.
Bonus.
It's Christmas, so you get extra content.
Happy Christmas. So is this Christmas?
Who is this guy?
You done, you and never did one, but out there you.
Okay, yeah, actually it was a really good video. I think he really understands the Japanese culture, and probably he's been living in Japan for a while, so yeah. And as I've said before, yeah, Japanese people don't teach you these rules, yeah. So it's something that you have to experience to find out, or you know, you gotta watch these kind of videos. Yeah, it was really good. Yeah, I agree with the 12 things not to do in Japan. Good stuff. Okay, yeah, so thank you very much for watching my video. And if you have any videos that you want me to react to, yeah, please write it down on my comments. Yeah, please subscribe my channel. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. See ya! Power!